In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I added the infrastructure in order to support that client container app. There's a lot of files in the PR. I'm going to ignore a lot of them because I've talked about them in other videos, and I'm just going to focus on what's going on in the infra, which is where all the provisioning is. Since I knew that the front end and the back end were very, very similar to the sample repository and its infrastructure, I did lean heavily on what's going on here. So if you're not sure what I'm doing and you want another example, always look at the Azure samples to do projects. There are many of them. I think there are 40 right now. And each of them has the Azure Developer CLI infrastructure provided for you, and they cover static web apps, container apps, Azure Functions, app service, and I think they even have some Kubernetes examples. So always go out and find your infrastructure match as close as you can so that you don't have to do quite so much work. And that's what I did. So the first thing I did was update my main.bicep in my infra folder, and I knew I needed some extra stuff. So I knew I needed the base URL for the API. I added a little bit of extra stuff there that I could sort of see I needed to handle. Let's see what else here. I did add cores. I don't actually think my project is abiding by cores right now. I don't think the API actually cares yet. I don't think I have that configured correctly. But here is my module for my front end, and you'll notice that the even though I'm adding the API base URL, I don't actually need it. I just figured that out a few days ago. I don't actually need to pass the URL because it's built inside of the image. It's built inside of the static front end prior to getting put on the image, so I don't actually need this. I'm going to have to clean that up. Let's see. Front end, back end. Oh, these are the output variables. Okay. So really the bulk of it is here with the front end container being built. And then I do have my own module. So if you go look at that, I do separate out the API from the client. It's going to look very much like these both create containers. So they're going to look very similar. And then what else did I do? Parameters got cleaned up. I did add the backend API URL. And then the bulk of the work is copying over the shared folder. I don't know if it was the shared folder from the shared folder was created when I did AZD init, but basically that means all of the infrastructure configuration has been provided for you, and as long as you call those modules correctly with the correct parameters, it all works. So I really only added, I really only had to touch the main.bicep, main.parameters.json, and then I did create my own application container for the infrastructure, but that was more a management organization issue and not something that was required. So there was actually, once I figured out what was going on, was very little I had to actually do to add that second container into my container environment.